My name is Steve. I am in the Embroidery for All group, and I got a request to show how I used a larger hoop than the hoop that came with my machine. So I wanted to explain how I did that. For example, my machine uses a 4x4 hoop. That is the standard size for it. It did have in the instruction manual the name for a larger hoop that it can use, which I Googled and found on Amazon, which is this hoop. Please note the widths of the hoops are the same because it does go up and down. It does not go left and right. So the width is the only thing that stays the same, but the length can go longer. The way these hoops work is, if you see, mine has two. So basically, when we multi-hoop, we're going to jump the twos, and that gives us the ability to make longer designs. Firstly, I want to talk about this because this is what I looked at on how to figure this out. Basically, these three little holes right here, when we look at the software, are going to be the center points of our multi-hoopings. I did calculate the distance between them. Was 1.5 inches. This is important later when we go in the software, and I'll explain it again of how we do set up the design so that it aligns perfectly. So yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about. I'm going to go ahead and jump to the software and try to explain it. Alrighty, so this is the Hatch software if you're not familiar with it. So basically right here is my 4-inch by 4-inch normal hoop. If you don't know how to show that, up top here is a little hoop button. It will allow you to show the hoop. I'm just going to insert something that is larger than my hoop area for this, just to test this out. So let's just write something and see if this does it. Okay. Let's make it a little bigger, just for the purposes. Also, too, up here you can see there is different measurements for height and stuff. If I change the height right now, it's going to change the width as well. Over here there is a lock button, so you can unlock that, and now I have the ability to change the height without having to change the width, etc. That obviously looks horrible, but for this purpose, it's just learning purposes. So as you can see, this is bigger than my 4x4 area. So we need to do what's called a multi-hooping. Over on the left-hand side here, there is a tab that's called multi-hooping. What this is going to do is bring you into a screen with an ability to set up multiple hoops. You do that by adding hoops on the left-hand side. There is a video on doing it with registration marks. I posted that earlier. With that, you can do automatically add hoops, and it will add hoops like this to do your design, but that's going to put registration marks in the fabric. I want to do that without having to do registration marks, and just by moving the actual hoop itself. So what I do is I set up my hoops how I talked about before, where the center marks, let me just move this out of the way, where the center marks are 1.5 inches apart. I did that ahead of time on this, so I'll show you over here. This is basically how that plastic hoop that I showed you in the beginning is set up. Here are those 3 holes that I talked about that give you the ability to embroider. Basically, having it set up this way means I only have to take off the hoop and move it down 1 notch to make it to the next center. So basically, what I would do for this design is I want to add in a hoop and see that if I can fit this design in just those 2. So basically, I cover part of it, and then I see where the center line lines up. I try to put it on a number so it's a lot easier to make it 1.5. If you see I zoom in, I can see on the top where the line is going to hit the numbers. So I can see like that's on a -1. So I know that 1.5 inches from there would be, so 0 would be 1, and then 1/2 inch would be here. But not only do I want to line it up with that, but I want to make sure that the horizontal line is also lined up with the horizontal line on the other hoop. This way it's going to line up perfectly. Now you might have to move it around a little and play with the numbers, because as you can see, now the word jump is all the way on the edge of my hoop, and I don't really want that. So I can move these over, and it's just going to take some finagling. But basically what you want is you want these center points to be 1.5 inches apart. Or another way of doing it, which I did yesterday, is I actually made them 3 inches apart. So basically, since there's 3 spots I can do, I did the first spot and the last spot. This helped me a little more. As you can see, this way I don't have to use 3 jumps. I only have to use 2. We're going to pretend that these are 3 inches apart. I know that they're not, but just for sake, we're just going to say that. So basically, when I have my hoop set up, you can see that it's still in black. This is because I need to slice the design. So the way we slice the design is over here on the left-hand side, there is a add splitting line. You're going to click that. Then basically, it's going to do 2 points. You hit 1 point, drag it down, and hit another point, and then you hit enter. Now you can see it all turned green. This means it's able to embroider. I can grab this line, I can grab the line and move it over if I want, just in case it's too close. But basically now it's saying that I have this multi-hoop lettering in this red hoop, and then I have the word jump in this blue hoop. So basically now, if I was going to go save it, or export it. If you don't know how to make a design able for your machine, you want to go to File and Export Design. This will bring up the saving menu, and you can pick which you want to save it as. Mine takes PES, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to hit Design 1 for purposes, because I don't care. So now it's going to bring up a screen. It's going to show you the 2 different hoops that your machine is going to do. So if you look on the right here, first, it has my sequence numbers, so it wants to do 1 first and then 2. Basically, these are the 2 different hoops. If it looks good, we're just going to hit, you can hit save them one at a time, or you can just hit save all, and it will save both of them onto my computer. Now I'm going to go ahead and load this on my USB and plug it into my machine, and then we'll be right back. Alrighty, so we are back. This is my machine. I have my USB, which I'm going to plug into the side so that I can load up that design I did. I did end up editing it and making it so that it was 3 inches apart from the center points for this tutorial. If I could just get the USB in. Alright, so I'm going to hit my load. You do want to only load one of the files at a time, since it is 2 files. If you load both, it's going to get a little confusing. So I'm just going to go in here and load the first one. You should not have to do any movements with the center direction with your files, but you might have to change the horizontal a little bit, but I'll go into that later. So I'm just going to set the first one in here. So this is the hoop I am talking about. See how there is 3 sections. I have the first section, the second section, and the third section. Since I set mine up at 3 inches apart, I'm using the first section and the third section. I'm not using the second section, but if I would have done it with the 1.5 inches apart, I could use all 3 sections, which, you know, it would make it more difficult, so I just like using the first and last one. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on the first section and go ahead and embroider the first part out, and then we'll be right back. So actually, real quick, I did want to explain, when you do load your design, it is going to be, I don't know if this is going to show, in a horizontal. Since our hoop is a longer design, we actually do have to rotate the design so that we know that it's going to go the long ways. So I actually have to rotate it like this, because again, we're using a longer hoop, not a wider hoop. This is not showing very well, but we're just going to pretend that you can see that I rotated it. All right, now I'm going to embroider it out. Alrighty, so my first round is now finished. I'm going to lift up my foot and show you guys. I'm going to take this off. So, as you can see, it finished doing that first square that I had designed when we did the multi-hooping. Now, if you think that you might have misaligned your hoopings on the software, you can always add in the second design to your design. I don't know if my camera's going to show it. I don't really recommend this, doing the embroidery this way, but if you just want to check, I can go back and add in the second design. If it'll let me. Here we go. Embroidery. I did this with a previous design that had a border because I wanted to make sure that my borders would match. So again, I'm adding in the second design. I do need to rotate it. I'm going to change the color of it though so that I can see the difference. So let's see if this will... I never know how to make this zoom, guys, so I do apologize. You can barely see it. Anyways, basically it has my two designs in this square. I need to again rotate it because we're going lengthwise. And then on it I can zoom in. And if I zoom in really far, I can see that the bottoms of the letters are actually aligned. You can't really see because for some reason this doesn't want to show my little LCD screen. But you can add in both just in case you want to see that they are going to be aligned on the top or the bottom. Let me zoom out real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the first one I did, just so that I'm on the second one only. So like I said, when I did mine, I did it the 3 inches apart. So I'm going to go from the first set and skip this second set and jump to the third set when I hoop this on now. Put this on. There is one thing I do before I start this. This should automatically be centered because of how we set it up in the software. The one thing that I do, kind of weird, is I do go to the alignment of the needles and I hit this little button. God, I wish this would show. There is a button that can show me like where the bottom left corner, the bottom right corner, the middle of the design is going to be. I like to go to the bottom middle, so it shows me where the bottom of the design is going to be. Basically, if I put my foot down, and I can even use my hand to rotate the needle, I know that this is where the J is going to start embroidering when it puts jump. The reason I move the needle around to see what the edge is going to be is because sometimes if your design is too close, the way you set it up in the multi-hooping, it might start the J right next to the P. And in that case, I would want to move my beginning centered needle more this way. That way, it's going to make the words still spaced evenly apart. It does take a little practice sometimes. This one is just happened to working out perfectly for me. I don't need to move the needle. I can basically just go ahead and start this embroidery. Move that back up. Let's lift this foot real quick. Because I know that now the J is going to start here, which is a good enough space away from the word hoop. So basically, I'm just going to go ahead and embroider this now. Put my foot down, grab a little string. Also, I know a lot of people like to cut the strings. I actually pull a lot of the string out because usually after about 5 stitches, I just go ahead and I cut the strings with my scissors. So I usually let it go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or when it starts, just going fast, I just cut it off like that, and I go ahead and go. So I'm going to let this go, and then we'll see the result at the end. Alrighty, so it is done. I was just trying to see if I could get this to focus on my, oh, here we go. If I zoom in really good, it kind of shows it. So I'm going to back out a little just so you guys can see what I was talking about before. No, don't cancel. So, let's see if I can get this to show. Come on. So there on the bottom right is my needle moving button right here. When I press that, this is what I was talking about before. I have all these markers that if I press them, it's going to move the needle to where the design is going to start. Like if I move go to the middle bottom one, it shows where the design starts, and you can make adjustments for that if you need. So I'm going to go ahead and unhoop this and show you guys what the result is. So here's the result. As you can see, the spacing to the J is a little far. Again, like I was just talking about, if I wanted, I could have moved my beginning point of center needle over more, and it would have moved the J over more. Since we lined them up perfectly in the software, you can see that the bottom edging of the words is perfectly aligned. Now on some designs, you are going to want to adjust your starting point. For instance, I did, if you saw in that picture that I posted, I did this design which had a border on it. And with a border, if you look really closely, you can see it's just off by a smidge. No one's really going to notice. But when I first tested this out, it actually started the border about half a centimeter in the other border. So what I had to do was move my beginning needle half a centimeter this way so that it would actually line up with the other borders. Borders are a little more harder, and I definitely recommend that you test it out on a scrap piece of fabric before you actually go onto your project. So basically, what we did today was we took our bigger hoop, which is this, and we made it into this, and I'm actually just going to jump back and talk to you guys for a few seconds, so give me 1 second. Alrighty, so we are back. Again, we just finished doing the hoop project, so I just want to go over everything real quick because sometimes when we get to the end of a video, we forget what the video was about. So basically, I have my larger hoop that I bought that has the same width as my smaller hoop. Again, it has to be the same width because my machine only goes 4 by 4 inches wide in the design section. So we can make it longer, but I can't make it wider. At least I haven't figured that out yet. So what we did is we went into our Hatch software and using these 3 center holes right here, because those are the centers that correlate to the 3 sections that we have to hook our hoop on. So in that design software, we do know that on these at least, between each center is 1.5 inches apart. I decided to just use the first and the last center, so I made those centers 3 inches apart. We then did the hooping software and converted it into 2 designs. So then we put it on and did 1 design at a time. Again, you can look at both designs at a time if you want to make sure they're aligned. They should be if you're doing it proper in the software. It just takes some patience. Again, please practice on scrap fabric before you try it on your main design. If you guys have any extra information, just share it. Again, I'm very new to this software. I'm just trying to share things that I learn as I go. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. Thanks for watching.